Chapter 37:15. The first is here. As soon as I arrived in the Red Cloud Realm, I got a top universe treasure, and it was extremely easy, which made Jian Wushuang look forward to this Red Cloud Realm. With the successive birth of one piece of treasure, this feast in the Red Cloud Realm has really begun. In a flash, 20 years have passed. Zhong Tian, congratulations, you have got a high treasure armor. Jian Wushuang and the Zhetian Alliance Lord, the Space and Time Lord rumors and exchanges with each other. Haha, I'm also lucky. The place where the Arcana Warframe was born this time is less than 300,000 miles away, and one of my masters is around, and I easily got it. Your luck has been good for a full 20 years. Over the past 2 decades, I and Tianhu Xiaoyu combined to get the treasure. I'm afraid there aren't as many as you. The Master of Space and Time said the same. Where, although I have received many treasures in these 20 years, there are 8 of them, but they are all low and high, most of them are top treasures, only one. What else do you want? You know, in the past 20 years, I haven't gotten one of the top treasures. Even the higher one has only got 2, plus a family of elementary treasures. Better than me, at least I got a top treasure. Okay. Jian Wushuang just smiled. There are so many treasures in the Red Cloud Realm. More scary. In this short period of 20 years, there are countless treasures born in the Red Cloud Realm. Naturally, these treasures have also been obtained by the surrounding practitioners. As for how much you get, it depends on your strength and luck. Among them, luck is very important. Like the sword Unparalleled, in the past 20 years, he also got a top universe treasure at first, then he successively got a sword high universe treasure and 2 elementary treasures. In the short period of 20 years, the Heavenly Alliance's main luck has gained 8 pieces of the universe, including the top one. Don't worry, the Red Cloud Realm will open for a full 10,000 years. In this 10,000-year period, although there will be more precious treasures born at the beginning, there will be more precious treasures born in the future. Based on our 3 strengths, if after 10,000 years of running, I am afraid that there will be no small gains. This is also true. It's been 10,000 years, and it's only 20 years now. It's too early. The Master of Space and Time laughed. And in the past 20 years, there is not one strongest universe in the Red Cloud Realm. It seems that even the highest peak treasure was born with 2 treasures. The 3 of them rushed around in the Red Cloud Realm, while the Xian Shinto people sat in the Shingon Palace and had been gathering information for them. In these 20 years, about how many arcanas have been born in the Red Cloud Realm, and how many top arcanas and peak arcanas have been born, Xian Shinto will immediately inform them of the news. That's why they know that in the past 20 years, only 2 peaks of Red Cloud Realm have been born. Earth treasures born in the Red Cloud Realm have always been low in the beginning, but there are many. But later, the number of birth treasures will be greatly reduced, but the quality will be improved. In the future, the treasures often born at least they are all above the high level, and rarely will there be elementary to the treasure. Whether it's the first or the highest one, as long as we are in front of us, or if we have a chance to get it, then do NT let it go. Although these 3 are not useful to the 3 of us, they are the masters of those rules. In terms of use, it's very useful. In addition, if the number of treasures we get is really large, we can also take these treasures to Jodi Pavilion, and we can also exchange some high-level treasures. 9 Emperor Pavilion? Jian Wushuang looked but moved. What is this 9 Emperor Pavilion? Don't you know? The Lord of the Cut Heavens was surprised. Sword Wushuang shook his head. Haha, Tianhu Xiaoyu has not been in the universe battlefield for a long time. In addition, there is rarely a chance to contact Jodi Pavilion on weekdays, so I did not tell him to Shen God. That's it. The leader of the Celestial Alliance became clear, followed by Shu. Jodi Pavilion is an extremely ancient and powerful force. It is said that the nest of Jodi Pavilion is the deepest in the universe, and it is also a hegemon of a party. Power is spread all over the corner of the universe. The starfield like ours is actually only in the corner of the universe, but even so, there is still a Jodi Pavilion in this starfield. The 9 imperial courts do not fight for hegemony, do not participate in the struggle of all parties in our star domain, and are not even interested in the 3 great battlefields of our star domain, the endless opportunities there, they only do business. The leader laughed. Do business? Jen Wuxuang stunned. Yes, Jyoti Pavilion is in fact plain, it is equivalent to a large trading place. If you have a powerful treasure or special treasure in your hands, if you do need it, you can put it in Jyoti Pavilion and entrust it. Sell or exchange for you. Similarly, you can go to the Jyoti Pavilion and use your own things to exchange for the treasures in the Jyoti Pavilion. Like if we have enough treasures in the Red Cloud Realm this time, we can also go to Jyoti Pavilion and use these treasures in exchange for higher level treasures, such as dozens of top treasures, you can in exchange for a pinnacle of treasure. Is that so? Jen Wuxuang raised his eyebrows and asked him, is there any treasure in the Nine Emperor Pavilion? Well, it's not. The leader of Zhejian League shook his head. If it is the Jude Pavilion in the deepest part of the universe, there must be everything, but the Jude Pavilion in our starfield is not guaranteed. However, it is certain that there is the strongest treasure in the Nine Emperors Pavilion, and there are not only one or two, but there are many, and only if you can pay a large enough price, you can go inside for the strongest universe treasure. Jen was eyes narrowed. Tianhu Xiaoyu, you actually want to ask, is there ice-glazed jade in the pavilion of the Nine Emperors? Suddenly the Lord of Time and Space asked. Yes. Jen Wuxuang nodded. He just knew about the existence of the Zhejian Pavilion, and according to the Confederate Lord of Heaven, since the Zhejian Pavilion is so good, there may be Bingshan glazed jade inside. Tianhu Xiaoyu, I can tell you that this Bingshan glass jade does not exist in the Jade Emperor's Pavilion. The master of the Spacetime Palace said positively, because I knew before that you needed the Bingshan glass jade, Xian Shen asked someone to go to the Jade Emperor's Pavilion. Asked. Remember the first domain name in this book. Zhoutian God Emperor Mobile Version Reading URL. Chapter 37:16. Second more. What happened? Jen Wuxuanglian asked. The answer given before by Jyoti Pavilion is that there is no Bingshan glazed jade in this star domain. However, as long as they give them 3 pieces of peak to treasure armor, they can get a piece of Bingshan glazed jade from other territories, but they need to. It's going to take a little longer. How long? Jen Wuxuang asked. Don't dare to guarantee it, but say it will be within 500,000 years. 500,000 years. The sword did not change color. He didn't care about the 3 peak treasures. Earlier in the early world of the gods, he killed the 3 masters of Demon Star. From those 3 masters, he received 4 pieces of peak and treasure armor, even the strongest treasure and the 3 masters. 1, he also got 3, although they were all attacking. It can be said that his family is still very rich now. Not to mention the 3 top treasures, even if it is the 3 strongest treasures, he can handle it, but the key is that it takes too long for Zhejian Pavilion to get one from other territories. Within 500,000 years, although it is within, but it is certain that the time is not short, and it will take 300 to 400,000 years to say less, which is still too long for Jen Wuxuang. Cool. Exhaling lightly, Jen Wuxuang's expression gradually returned to calm. Although the time is longer, at least it is away. After I leave the Red Cloud Realm, I will go to the Jyoti Pavilion in person. Jen Wuxuang secretly said. At this time. Jen Wuxuang's expression suddenly moved, and he turned over and took out a sign. This sign is one of the 3 major free alliances, and the ruler of the Tianzu Dojo. Xingong and the 3 major free alliances can be said to belong to the same camp. This time when they came to the Red Cloud world, the Xingong and the strong men under the 3 major free alliances exchanged orders with each other. Xingong and the 3 great freedom alliances who entered the Red Cloud realm also have sword warriors. They can directly communicate with sword warriors. At this moment it was the ruler who summoned him directly. Master Jiantianhu, I am the Lord of the Ice Dust of Tianzu Dojo. I am now on the 3rd continent, and in the void where I am now, there is a pinnacle of the highest treasure. The anxious voice of the Lord of Ice Dust came. Peak warrior armor? Jen Wuxuang looked. 20 years after he entered the Red Cloud realm, he has also figured out his current position, which is on the 3rd continent. After finding out his position, he accounted for all the strong men in the 3rd continent that belonged to the Star Palace and the 3 major free alliances. If he found that the top and the highest treasures were born, he would immediately call him and tell him that he would rush over as quickly as possible. Now, in the void where the Lord of the Ice Dust is, a pinnacle of the treasure armor is born. In the past 2 decades, the Red Cloud Realm has only produced 2 pinnacle treasures, and they are only attacking the magic soldiers. Now, finally, the pinnacle treasure plate is born, and it is just on my 3rd continent. Wushuang smiled. Tell me where you are now, and I'll rush here. Jian Wushuang commanded. The Lord of the Ice Dust immediately told Jian Wushuang where he was. After Jian Wushuang compared the star map, he immediately determined the distance between himself and the Lord of Ice and Dust. Good guy, there are about 16 million miles in the middle. It's no wonder that I haven't sensed the breath of the peak and treasure armor. Jian Wushuang secretly said. The birth of Jibao is usually accompanied by a lot of movement, especially the breath of Jibao's birth, which spreads very widely. At the peak of the treasure, the movement is greater, but the movement is still less than 16 million miles away. The top-level treasure is born longer than the average high-end, top-level treasure. It is 16 million miles away, and it takes me a while to reach it at my speed. I hope I can make it. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate and immediately set off. The Lord of the Heavens and the Lord of Time and Space also knew that Jian Wushuang was rushing to the place where the supreme treasure was born, and they all whispered, "Heavenly friend, good luck." At a distance of 16 million miles, if the teleportation or time and space can be performed, the sword is unparalleled. Unfortunately, in the Red Cloud Realm, a method similar to teleportation cannot be used at all. Jian Wushuang can only move at his own speed, and it took some time to get there. When the sword unparalleled arrived, the Pinnacle Arcana Warframe had been completely born, and the competition had already begun. The Pinnacle Arcana Warframe had now fallen into the hands of a ruler named Tsihong. The Merciful Lord is a superpower who is the ultimate in the 6 realms of void. However, although the peak jewel armor has fallen into his hands, many powerful men around him have no intention of letting go of the Merciful Master. You know, for the ruler, the top universe is enough for them to compete madly, and the pinnacle of the universe is the highest. Just attack the magic soldier. A pinnacle of the highest treasure, even the dominant power will be extremely envious, not to mention the ruler. Because of this, I know that the Merciful Lord is not easy to mess with, but the rulers around them are still madly rushing up and want to kill the Merciful Lord. The master of Tsihong, although strong, did not escape very well. Facing the siege of a large number of powerful men around him, he could not break out immediately, which gave Jian Wushuang the opportunity to participate in the competition. When Jian Wushuang appeared on this battlefield, the ruler of these rules completely slaughtered together, and the Merciful Master had long been jealous. In a short siege he used his mighty strength to slay the 3 rule masters, but his own divine power was also consumed a lot. Stop it. Jian Wushuang spoke indifferently, and his figure also appeared directly in the center of the battlefield. At the same time, a horrible divine power directly covered and oppressed the audience. This mighty power, although Jian Wushuang did not do his best, but still exceeded the rule of the rule of the rule. Suddenly the master of many rules on the field was a shock in their hearts, their body and their movements stopped. Came down. The Lord of Mercy, hand over that peak arcana warframe, I won't embarrass you. Jian Wushuang was carrying his hands, and stared calmly at the Merciful Lord in front of him. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor Mobile Version Reading URL. Chapter 37:17. The first is here. Blood, Lord of the Blood Sword. The Merciful Lord looked at Jian Wushuang who appeared in front of him, and his face was immediately ugly. In terms of strength, he is indeed very strong. Even among the most powerful of the rulers, he is barely qualified to be in the top 10. It can be said that with such strength, among the rule masters, he can almost walk sideways. However, there are still 2 people in the Lord of the Rules, which is enough to scare him. These 2 people, one is the Blood Tudi, the other is the Lord of the Blood Sword in front of him. Among them, Blood Tudi, which was known for a long time ago, has been acquiesced by many people as the strongest of the rulers of this star domain, and his strength is very close to dominating. As for Jian Wushuang, although his rise was not as long as that of Blood Tudi, his record was even more scary than that of Blood Tudi. That was the one who defeated 5 of the 6 realm extremes and killed one of them. In the first battle, he directly replaced the Bloodslayer, and was directly the strongest of the masters of this star domain rule. These two people are far superior to him in terms of strength. If it is normal, if he meets the Lord of the Bloodsword, he will definitely choose to retreat without hesitation. But now, he can't retreat at all. If you do not surrender the piece of peak treasure you got before, the Lord of the Bloodsword and the rulers of the surroundings will never let him go. But the pinnacle of treasure, he was reluctant to give up. Joke, even the top-level treasures that even the dominant powers will frantically compete for, how could he just give up as simple as that? Even if you are the Lord of the Bloodsword, even if you are more powerful than me, the treasure battle gear has fallen into my hands. If you want, then you have to see if you have this ability. The merciful Lord issued a roar. He rolled up the waves. He didn't choose to slam the sword invincible, but rushed to the side of the void for the first time. But right at the moment he left hum. A faint sword light caught up directly and sank into his body. The main body of Ci Hong was shocked, and a look of terror appeared in her eyes. His divine power was instantly annihilated by more than 90%, and his breath became extremely weak. The Lord of Mercy, hand over that precious treasure armor, otherwise I won't keep my hand next time. Jian Wushuang's indifferent voice sounded again. The merciful Lord turned his head extremely stiffly. He looked at Jian Wushuang, and his eyes were full of unwillingness and incredibleness. Unwilling, naturally is unwilling to reach the pinnacle of the treasure, so hand it over in vain. It's unbelievable because of the strength revealed by Jian Wushuang. Too strong. Only a slight end of Zhenguang entered his body, and instantly wiped out his 90% divine power, which is still the case where swordsman has reserved his hand. If he didn't keep his hand, he just killed the little wisps of sword light just now. How is that possible? How could the strength of the Bloodsword Master be so strong? The Lord of the Red Sword was completely frightened by the strength of the sword unparalleled. You know, although Jian Wushuang now has the dominance of the Master and even the higher Master, few people outside know it. Most people's understanding of the sword unparalleled still stays at the time when he alone defeated the 5-6 realm extremes in the Magic Smoke Valley. At that time, Jian Wushuang was the invincible combat power of the ruler. Although this kind of combat power, the Lord of the Red, knows that the enemy cannot be defeated, but can confidently entangle himself for a while, and even have a chance to escape from the swordless hands. But I did not think that Jian Wushuang's real strength was much stronger than that time. Master, the Lord of the Bloodsword, definitely has the mastery level of combat power. He is enough to kill me with his hands raised. Why, are you still not willing to hand it over? Jian Wushuang frowned. He has already given the host of the benevolent host. If the latter does not know each other again, it is really no wonder that he is. The Lord of the Bloodsword, you won. The Lord of Mercy Red smiled bitterly. In the face of absolute strength, he has nothing to insist on, and if he persists, it is pure death. Breathing lightly, the Lord of Mercy was ready to take out the peak and treasure armor and hand it to Jian Wushuang. The rulers of the surroundings just looked at this scene, but no one came forward to stop it. Although they were full of longing for the peak and treasure armor, no one dared to things from the sword without hands. But just then, a figure suddenly appeared in the void next to it. As soon as this person appeared, a breath of Xion, far above the Lord of many rules present, had already spread. Perceiving this breath, many of the strong men present were shocked. Dominate. A master is here. When even there was a look at that figure, the action of the merciful Lord also stopped, and his gaze looked over there. I saw a middle-aged man wearing a white robe, hovering there calmly, looking at the scene in front of the void, and frowning slightly. Master of Wu Qing, dominated by Wu Qing, the Lord of the surrounding rules has been recognized in the future. It turned out that Wu Qing was the master, and he was also in the third continent. Jian Wushuang's mouth evoked a playful smile. The Wu Qing master had met him at the entrance of Hongyunji before. At that time, the Wu Qing master still had a trace of awe to him. Later, after entering the Red Cloud realm, everyone was scattered, and the Wu Qing master came to the third continent just like Jian Wushuang, and now the two still met. Jian Wushuang did not care about the arrival of Wu Qing's dominance, but the rulers around him became strange at this moment. For the masters of these rules, when Jian Wushuang appeared in this void, It meant that the peak and treasure armor had nothing to do with them, especially the Jian Wushuang showing its horrible power, which made Ci Hong instantly. The main damage of the master is to make the masters of the surrounding rules have no heart to fight. Even the merciful Lord himself planned to surrender that peak to the treasure armor to sword unparalleled. But at this time, there was a strong man who dominated the scene, which was a bit interesting. You have to know that the pinnacle of the treasure is still in the hands of the merciful Lord. The benevolent Lord was also at a loss at this moment, a little at a loss. He took the pinnacle treasure battle gear, looked at Jian Wushuang, and looked at the master Wu Qing next to him. For a moment, he didn't know who to give the pinnacle treasure warframe to. Give it to Jian Wushuang, what will happen to the next master? And if it was entrusted to the Lord of the blood sword near him would be angry and instantly kill him. To whom is chapter 3717 given? Page 11, bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 3718. Second more. The Lord of Mercy is really at a loss now, and it's not clear to whom to send the pinnacle treasure armor. At this time, Jian Wushuang spoke first. Master of Wu Qing, can you come here now to rob me of this pinnacle of treasure? Peak warrior peak. Wu Qing's dominated pupils shrank secretly, but immediately opened up. He chuckled. The Lord of the Blood Sword misunderstood. I only noticed the movement of this void before deliberately coming over since the Lord of the Blood Swords arrived here first, and that peak and treasure armor will soon fall into your hands. The Lord of the Blood Swords, I naturally have nothing to fight for. After all, everything has to come first. Oh! Jian Wushuang frowned. The rulers around them looked even stranger. In this red cloud world, the competition for the treasure is also about first come first come? Just kidding. Since the contention has already come to fruition, I will leave first. The master of Wu Qing ignored the doubts of the surrounding people and turned and left. Soon, the master of Wu Qing disappeared in front of everyone. This scene is even more shocking to those rulers present. Why, Wu Qing dominated, and just left like this. I didn't even have the idea of scrambling, so I just left. When this Wu Qing master, when did he become so good at speaking? Is it the Star Palace behind the master of Wu Qing who avoids the blood sword? It is not right. Although the Star Palace is also a big force, it is not as strong as no one dares to provoke, like the Beihai Palace. Don't worry about the Star Palace. Still, the master of Wu Qing knows that the master of the blood sword is good, and he can't help each other, so he can only leave, but the peak and treasure armor is not yet in the hands of the master of the blood sword. Those rulers around clearly did not understand the actions of Wu Qing's master. They also don't understand why the Wu Qing master left without thinking of fighting. You know, that is a pinnacle of the top treasure, but it is enough to make many dominate the eyes and furiously fight for it. And the only one on the field who was not too surprised by the departure of Wu Qing was Jian Wushuang himself. Oh, it's pretty familiar. Jian Wushuang smiled secretly. He knew why the host of Wu Qing was leaving, apparently because the latter was unwilling to compete with himself for a pinnacle of treasure. A mere piece of the highest arcana warframe, and not the strongest arcana, I cannot afford to provoke the Lord of the Blood Sword for such a treasure, otherwise, whether we can compete for it, the key is to use the blood sword. If the Lord offends me, not only will my secret be revealed, but the Lord of the Blood Sword can be combined with the Lord of the sect to kill me, even my deity. Once they are spotted, I can't escape. Wu Qing's idea is clear. If it is one of the strongest treasures that he needs, or the strongest treasure that really makes him feel good, then he is likely to truly fight with the sword. Otherwise he would never dare to provoke Jian Wushuang. As soon as Wu Qing dominated, there was no suspense for this contention. The ruthless lord honestly handed that pinnacle treasure armor to Jian Wushuang, and after searching, he found that this piece of treasure warrior was indeed the pinnacle treasure level, but on the rank, talk to himself, the blood demon cave Tianjia is still worse than that. He would definitely not use this treasure, but in the future, he can go to Jodi Pavilion to exchange for other treasures, but it is still possible. In 20 years, I can get a peak battle treasure, which is already a great gain. Next, the scramble for the treasures in the Red Cloud Realm continues. A flash, 50 years later. In these 50 years, the peak of the Red Cloud Realm has reached 12. Most of them are attacking the arcana. Only one of the peak arcana armor is obtained by the sword. The pinnacle of the more precious soul attack was obtained by a master. The vast earth, a blood red. Hum. A faint knife sounded. In the void ahead, a purple sword was hovering quietly there, and a breath of higher universe treasure spread from the purple sword. At the moment when the purple sword was completely born, there were more than a dozen rulers around him who had been rushing up in an instant. Suddenly, a vast force of time and space swept away like ripples. All rulers who rushed toward the purple sword were at this moment greatly restricted by the power of time and space, and their body speed was greatly weakened. Immediately under the gaze of everyone, a ghostly figure appeared beside the purple sword, and the purple sword was put into the ring of heaven with a wave of a hand. Seeing that the purple sword had been taken away by the other party, the 10 or so rulers were all frustrated after a brief anger. Because they had seen the man who had taken the purple sword. It is the Lord of the Blood Sword, and the Lord of Starfield rules is considered to be the strongest existence. The purple sword fell into the hands of the Lord of the Blood Sword, and they had no chance to fight again. Suddenly, more than a dozen rulers began to disperse. Jian Wuxuang himself planned to leave, but at this time a figure came to him. Huh! Jian Wuxuang looked at the person who appeared in front of him. Tian Chen, I've seen the Lord of the Blood Sword. The comer said with a trace of respect. Tian Chen God, are you okay? Jian Wuxuang asked casually. Jian Wuxuang also knows about the God of Heaven Mark, and he is a strong 6-realm extreme. This strength alone is definitely not qualified to compete with himself for the supreme treasure. Yes, I have a friend who really wants to see you with the Lord of the Blood Sword, so if I want to see you, let me find a way to ask you to wait for a while here. God of God Mark. Oh. Someone wants to see me? Jian Wuxuang looked strange. Who is your good friend? Well, when he arrives, you will know the Lord of the Blood Sword. Tianhen God laughed. Jian Wuxuang raised his eyebrows. Okay, then I will stay here for a while, but I only wait half an hour. After half an hour, if your friend is not there, then I will go. Don't worry, my friend heard that you came to this continent 10 years ago after you were on the 3rd continent. Now it's not too far away from us. In half an hour, he arrived at most. Tianchen God said. Then I'll wait. Jian Wuxuang smiled slightly. He doesn't know who the friend Tianchen said is, but he has absolute strength as capital, and he doesn't worry that the Tianchen will calculate him. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor mobile version reading URL. Dear, click in and give a good comment. The higher the score, the faster the update. It is said that a beautiful wife was found at the end of the new score. Chapter 37:19. The first is here. As the Lord of the Heavens Mark said, his friend arrived soon. Wearing blood and blood robes, this man was carrying a demon sword. He looked very young. After coming to this void, his eyes looked at Jian Wuxuang for the first time. Blood 2D, is he originally? Jian Wuxuang raised his eyebrows, already knowing the other party's purpose of finding himself. Jian Wuxuang also knew this Emperor of Blood. When he has not risen, and has not been recognized as the strongest of the rulers of this star power, the strongest rule of this starfield is this Blood Emperor. The blood-slaying Emperor's combat power is very terrible. He once defeated 3 of the most powerful of the 6 realms, and that was many years ago. Over the past hundreds of thousands of years, the Blood 2D has rarely shot, and no one knows which step his combat power has reached, but it is certain that it is definitely stronger than before. In addition, the blood slaughter of the Emperor is also very famous in this starfield. Master of the Blood Sword, hello for the first time. Blood 2D stared at Jian Wuxuang, but at the beginning he greeted him very politely. Blood 2D, long-known name. Jian Wuxuang also smiled. I want Tianhen to come forward, and I want you to wait for me here. I know. Jian Wuxuang nodded. If I'm not mistaken, you want to see me so urgently, should you want to fight with me? Yes. The Emperor Shuetu didn't hide anything. I have seen the mirror image of you fighting with the 5 extremes of the 6 realms, including the Emperor Bloodknife. Your strength is indeed very strong. Even me, right, you do not have much confidence in it, and I also know that your cultivation time is very short. Now that tens of thousands of years have passed since that battle, you should be stronger. Although I know your current strength is above me, I still want to play against you." The blood 2D licked his lips, and his eyes were filled with terrifying warfare. "I can understand." Jian Wushuang smiled. It is normal to know that the opponent is stronger than himself and still want to challenge. Many people in this world are like this. Even Jian Wushuang himself, when he meets a strong player of the same level who is stronger than his own, knows that he is not the opponent, but he still has the urge to fight against each other. "Do you fight directly now?" Jian Wushuang asked. "Of course, it was very difficult to meet you in this red cloud world. The opportunity is rare, of course, we must grasp it." Blood 2D arrived. "Then you can shoot it." Jian Wushuang smiled lightly, with a light look. With this appearance, Shu Tudi's eyes narrowed slightly, and his heart was a little dissatisfied. Although he admitted from the beginning that Jian Wushuang was stronger than himself, he could not be better. He gave the other party enough respect. However, Jian Wushuang now looks like he hasn't thought of him at all. Of course, there was some dissatisfaction with the blood 2D. That being the case, then you are careful. Emperor Shuatu did not struggle with Jian Wushuang's behavior, but chose to shoot directly and speak with strength. The cold mang flashed, and the blood-colored demon sword behind Emperor Shuatu had directly sheathed. This sword was extremely cold and extremely powerful. Amazingly a pinnacle sword. "Master of the blood sword, draw your sword." "No need for now." Jian Wushuang shook his head slightly. "Crazy." Blood 2D immediately became furious. A majestic force burst out suddenly. He held the sword in both hands at the same time. Wow! The sword was cut out, and in a short time a mighty blood-colored sword swept out. The knife light is extremely dazzling, spreading out in the void, like a dazzling sword river. Scarlet Sword Hanoi has a suffocating Mori cold breath. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly, and at the moment when the Scarlet Sword River swept in front of him, he changed his hand and raised his head towards the void. This seems to be an understatement, but immediately there is a sword intended to gather in front of him. The sword spread out, as if a lotus bloomed. Under the impact of the sword, the blood-colored sword river collapsed instantly, and countless divine powers swept wildly around, creating a great deal of movement in this world. It was so simple that it broke my sword. Blood 2D was surprised. The blade just now, although it is not his strongest blade, but it is also the blade created by him that can be ranked in the top 3. In addition, he broke out with all his strength, exploding his own power to the extreme. You know, he is a special life. A special life, after reaching the extreme of the 6 realms, its outbreak of divine power far exceeds the master of the general rules. Even if compared with the master, it is not much worse. But despite this, Jian Wushuang just underplayed and broke his sword. "The Lord of the Blood Sword, it seems that I still despise you. Not only does your understanding of Kendo far exceed the rules of the general rules, even if it is in divine power, you are afraid that I do not need to be weak. Bloodslaughter, you still have to show your strongest means with the sword, otherwise there will be no chance." Jian Wushuang smiled. "As you wish." The blood 2D was not hesitant, only to see the layers of divine power burst wildly on his body, and a breath of divine power far beyond the rules master burst out from him. The Bloodslaughter Emperor is a special life, and the divine power is extremely powerful. And now he has performed an extremely powerful mystery that can increase his divine power in a short time. This mystery was obtained only after he spent a lot of energy and price in the deepest part of Red Rock Mountain, which is enough to make his strength reach a whole new level in a short time. With this secret technique and his own special constitution, he even dared to slam against the dominant powerhouse for a certain period of time. Humph! A cold hum, the air burst at the feet of Blood 2D. His body looks like a teleportation, appearing directly in front of Jian Wushuang, and the demon sword in his hand is like a real demon flashing out one after another. Wow! 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 The icy lights were extremely cold, incredibly fast, and the overwhelming assassination swords were cut off. A horrible downturn directly oppressed Jian Zhenshuang. Facing this overwhelming offensive, Jian Wushuang still looked very relaxed. He carried one hand behind him and the other, even the sword, and cast it out at will. It seems that every sword is very casual, but among the swordsmanships he is carrying, there is a trace of the origin of the universe of Kendo, and he fights directly with the sword light from the Emperor Tutu. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor Mobile Version Reading URL. Chapter 3720. Second More. With the sound of intensive clashes, the dense sword light cast by the blood 2D was resisted by the sword unparalleled. Great, I have all performed the strongest mystery, and the divine power that erupted at this moment is no less than the ordinary master, but he can still resist my sword light so easily. Blood 2D's eyes flashed with a strong excitement. The next moment, he stopped hiding. The Lord of the Blood Sword, pick me the strongest sword. As soon as the words came down, he saw the blood 2D's figure abruptly retreat, and in the middle of his abrupt retreat, the demon's sword stabbed sharply. Warla. The endless scarlet sword light burst out suddenly. Each of these blood-colored knife lights is like a crooked blood-colored moon, and there are hundreds of thousands of blood-colored knife lights, like a huge ocean of knife lights, covering the sky and the sun. For a time, the whole world was covered by this scarlet sea of light. And at the very center of this scarlet sea of light, a breath enough to tremble the rulers of countless rules suddenly rose. I saw the end of the front, a cold blood, swept straight. This bloodlight, extremely dazzling, at the moment when it was lit, the whole blood-colored knife light ocean around it seemed to have lost its color. The whole world seemed to be completely dark, and in this immense darkness, there was only this blood. It is the focus of heaven and earth and the only color between heaven and earth. This knife is not bad. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. He still did not pull out the sword, still with his fingers into a sword. When the blood was rushing at him, his right hand's fingers also stretched out straight, like a sharp sword, piercing the void in front. This sword, Jian Wushuang has not yet performed swordplay, it is still just a simple straight piercing, but the sword has no hands in the middle and up, but it is permeated with an extremely rich source of Kendo universe. Suddenly, everything around him disappeared. The blood-colored sword-light ocean had completely dissipated, and the bloodlight that had previously been the only color in the heavens and the earth immediately dimmed and even nearly dissipated. The sword Wushuang's finger had never entrained any power, but it was already on the chest of the blood 2D. You lost. Jian Wushuang said lightly. How is this possible? Emperor Shui still stood there, looking at the finger on his chest and sword, but his eyes were rounded, and his mind was blank at the moment. He completely choked off. He never imagined that he was proud of the strongest sword. This sword is already a master-level extinction. In addition, after performing mysterious surgery, he has a short period of divine power comparable to the master. At this moment, his combat power should be infinitely close to the master. But this is the sword, the result is still directly defeated by Jian Wushuang easily. He didn't pull the sword, but just used his fingers to smash his swordsmanship forward, and then clicked on his chest. This feeling is like a giant bullying a weak baby. He could see that Jian Wushuang did not use all his strength from beginning to end. He had always been casual and easy, but even so, he easily defeated him. He was completely crushed by Jian Wushuang and bullied by Jian Wushuang. Aside from the void, the Lord of the Heavens Mark, who had been watching the battle, was stunned. How can it happen? How could he be defeated so badly? Even if the Lord of the Blood Sword is more powerful than Blood 2D, I don't know that the gap is so big. I assent it. The Lord of the Heavens Mark immediately thought of a possibility. And the Blood 2D had barely calmed down at this moment. He looked up and took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and asked, Master of the Blood Sword, have you broken into the master? Break through the master? Jian Wushuang stunned, but followed with a smirk, I did not break through the master, but my strength has already surpassed the ordinary primary master. Did not break through the master, but the combat power surpassed the general master? Blood 2D looked at him with a sigh of relief, and then he sighed helplessly. It should already belong to the strongest kind. Even if you are stronger than me, you are definitely not stronger. But as a result, you are too much stronger than me, which is totally two different levels. You don't need to be discouraged. You can reach this step not only because I have many special reasons, but also because I have had some special encounters. As for you, you are indeed the ruler of the rule. It was terrible. Jian Wushuangdao. He said this, not for comforting the blood Tudi, but for the latter's strength. At least among the rulers, the strength of this blood slaughter emperor can definitely be recognized by Jian Wushuang. It is a special life in itself, and it also has a powerful mystery of magical power, which can spit out in a short period of time the power of divine power that is no less than that of ordinary elementary masters. In addition, he has created the mastery level of peerless power. To a certain extent, it is not much weaker than a primary master. No matter what my strength is, I can't compare with you anyway, and this battle with you also made me understand that there is one mountain and one mountain high. In this starfield alone, there are far more masters of the rules than me. The existence of the strong, let alone the vast universe, there must be more terrible geniuses and stronger than you, even stronger than you. I can't wait. After the end of the competition in the Red Cloud Realm, I set off, deep in the universe ahead. Blood Tudi said. You're going to go deep in the universe? Jian Wushuang was startled. The Blood 2 Emperor, who was watching the battle in the void, was also shocked. He did not expect that this thought would appear after the battle between Emperor Shuatu and Jian Wushuang. Master of the Blood Sword, thank you for this battle. Emperor Shuatu said. Polite. Jian Wushuang calm. Yes, there is one thing. You are afraid you don't know yet? Sudden Blood Tudi suddenly said. What is it? Jian Wushuang asked. Not long ago, in this third continent, around the ruins of the 17th, a sword stone was born. Emperor Shuetu. Sword stone? Jian Wushuang he is on the third continent himself, and the Xian Shinto man has been collecting intelligence in the Red Cloud Realm through various channels, but he has not heard what kind of sword stone. What's so special about this sword stone? Who got it in the end? Jian Wushuanglian asked. I do know the specific purpose of this sword stone, but I am sure that it is very beneficial to practitioners who understand the sword. And when the sword stone was born, it connected the earth of the Red Cloud Realm. A part of the earth, no one can take it away, so this sword stone should still be there now. If you have time, you can go and see for yourself. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor Mobile Version Reading URL. Chapter 3721. The first is here. Emperor Shuetu and Tianhen Lord soon left. But when Emperor Shuetu left, he told Jian Wushuang the existence of the sword stone. Is the sword stone? Jian was eyes narrowed slightly. Since it happened on this third continent, it can't be missed. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate, and went directly to the location of the sword stone. The Red Cloud Realm is very large, with 7 continents. This third continent alone is extremely vast, with billions of miles in radius. Within these billions of miles, there are a large number of building ruins, and these ruins have also been marked by the strong in this starfield for easy identification. Ruin number 17 should be located near the center of the third continent, and Jian Wushuang came here soon. After the ruins of the 17th, the power of the sword unparalleled soul spread, and it was easy to find the location of the sword stone. That's the sword stone? Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. In his soul perception, there is indeed a huge bloodstone. At first glance, the bloodstone is no different from the ordinary stones in the Red Cloud Realm, but at this moment there are many rulers who are gathering there. Most people are still enlightening under the bloodstone. Jian Wushuang also quickly came to the bloodstone, and when he really came here, both sides of the sword saw the strangeness of the bloodstone. The material is exactly the same as that of ordinary bloodstone, except that in the center of this swordstone, there are 4 big gold characters. Feng Xiao Xiao. Looking at the 4 bronzing texts in the middle of the sword stone, an ancient and ethereal breath came in an instant. For a moment, even Jian Wushuang was involuntarily affected by these 4 golden characters, and the whole person's consciousness became empty and misty. What a terrible mood. Even I was affected involuntarily. Jian Wushuang awakened instantly, but his heart took a breath. He stared closely at the 4 golden words on the sword stone, each of which contained a unique mood. As his mind sank, in an instant the rumbling. This sword stone in front of the sword was completely changed. The 4 golden characters on the sword stone are no longer ordinary characters. These 4 golden characters seem to come alive. The golden text evolved in Jian Wushuang's mind, and in the blink of an eye it turned into 4 amazing sword skills. Jian Wushuang's eyes widened. He was completely stunned by the sword skill transformed from the 4 golden characters in front of him. Too strong, too terrible. The artistic conception brought by that sword art alone makes the fear that Jian Wushuang feel. There is no doubt that any of these 4 swordsmanships can be described as earth-shaking. The person who left the 4 ancient characters of Feng Xiaoxiaoxi on this sword stone at first was bound to be a shocking superpower. Jian Wushuang even felt that it was the Supreme who left these 4 words. Only the words left by the Supreme and above can be transformed into such terrible swordsmanship. No wonder this bloodstone is called a sword stone. No wonder so many rulers have come to this sword to enlighten. Jian Wushuang was excited inside. He knows that the masters of these rules should be strong men who are good at kendo. They have some accomplishments in kendo, but I am afraid there is not even one person who understands the origin of kendo universe. Without understanding the origin of the kendo universe, even if you come under this sword stone, I am afraid it is difficult to really feel the existence of the 4 swordsmanship. Few things they can feel. But even just a few things, such as simple moods, are enough for the ruler of these rules to be silent for a long time. But sword unparalleled is different. He entered the threshold of the universe of the sword, especially when he was enlightened for 5,000 years under the town monument. He has made great progress on the kendo. Now he sees the 4 ancient golden stones in front of the sword stone. The text, however, is a complete 4 swordsmanship that can be seen from these 4 texts. Any of these 4 swordsmanships is earth-shattering. This is definitely a great opportunity for Jian Wushuang. 3 of the 4 swordsmanships are attacking swordsmanships, but there is one more, which seems to be a defensive bodyguard swordsmanship. The sword Wushuang looked. He felt the 4 swords he saw carefully. Of the 4 swordsmanship, 3 are mainly attack and kill, and some are powerful and powerful. Some are as fast as phantom ghosts, killing opponents in an instant. But these 3 swordsmanships, no doubt, are all swordsmanship of frontal fighting. There is only the last one, which is the sword art derived from the word shi. That sword art is an endless artistic conception. It gives the sword a unique feeling, and it is a natural sword skill. And this made Jian Wushuang start to groan. The 4 sword arts derived from the golden text on this swordstone are all unpredictable, and the Red Cloud Realm will be closed for at most 10,000 years after opening. In just 10,000 years, I will still fight for the treasure. May go to enlighten these 4 swords at the same time. You can only choose one of them, and concentrate on enlightenment. Since you can only choose one of them, you have to think about which one to choose. Jian Wushuang muttered. If there is enough time, or if he can collect the sword stone and take it away from the Red Cloud Realm, he will naturally not have to worry. When he slowly spends time later, he will learn the 4 swords at the same time. Unfortunately, when he came to the sword stone, he saw that the sword stone and the earth of the Red Cloud Realm were completely integrated, and it was impossible to move or collect the sword stone. And if you shoot directly, divide the sword stone into 2, and take away the part containing 4 golden words, it will not work. Because Jian Wushuang found that the 4 golden characters and sword stone have been completely integrated. If the sword stone is damaged, the mood of the 4 golden characters will also be greatly affected. If the sword stone is cut into 2 pieces, these 4 the artistic conception contained in the golden text is afraid to disappear completely. Jian Wushuang can't feel the existence of sword art from those 4 golden texts. No way. He can only stay here, like the master of these rules present, quietly comprehend. Then, of the 4 swordsmanships, he can only choose one of them to enlighten him, so that he can make great progress. As for the 4 swords, which one to choose, Jian Wushuang hesitated for a moment, and then he had made a decision. 3 of the 4 swordsmanships are attacking and killing swordsmanship, but there is only one body defending swordsmanship. Obviously, defending swordsmanship is far more rare than attacking and killing swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang understands that defending swordsmanship is indeed much rarer than ordinary attack and kill swords. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor Mobile Version Reading URL. Chapter 3722. Second More. In addition, what I am best at now is attacking and killing swordsmanship. As for the defensive swordsmanship of body protection, although I created a swordsmanship, that swordsmanship is not perfect and the level is still very low. A slightly stronger master, I'm afraid it's easy enough to defeat my defense sword. And now that I have such a good opportunity in front of me, I can't miss it. Just take a look at this body defense swordplay, and then perfect the body protection swordplay I created. Jian eyes flashed with light, and he had already made up his mind. Immediately, Jian Wushuang also found a forward position under the sword stone, sat down, and then closed his eyes and fell into the enlightenment. What he learned was the word 11 among the 4 golden words on the sword stone. As for the rulers next to them, when Jian Wushuang arrived, they were aware of it, but they were not panicked. After all, the opportunity in this sword stone is not the same as the precious treasures that were born before. The treasure was born and only one person could get it. The competition was naturally fierce. But the opportunity in this sword stone can be obtained as long as you come here, because no one can collect the sword stone. So no matter who comes here, as long as it does not prevent everyone from enlightenment, or if someone tries to destroy the sword stone, no one will take the shot. Everyone has his own skills. In front of the sword, everything seemed very peaceful. Because it was not long after the sword stone was born, not many people knew it at the beginning, like Jian Wushuang, but also learned the existence of the sword stone from the mouth of the blood-slaughter emperor, but the Xian Shinto man did not pass it to him. But as time passed, more and more people knew, and naturally there were more masters of rules that came to understand before coming to this sword stone. You know, there are a lot of scary masters of this rule of the stars, and of these rule masters, there are naturally a lot of strong men who are good at kendo. Now in this third continent, it is only estimated that they came before this sword and stone. The entire star domain is good at a small part of the Lord of Kendo rules, but there are hundreds of people in this small part. Hundreds of people are enlightened under the sword stone at the same time. It is inevitable that some people will compete for the shot because of the distance with the sword stone. Those rulers who want to enlighten under the sword stone certainly want to find a closer to the sword stone's position. However, no matter how they frantically compete for a better position of enlightenment, no one will come to disturb Jian Wushuang's enlightenment. He sat just below the sword stone, closest to the sword stone, but no one dared to come forward and change positions with him. Continuous, endless. This mood is like a life and death knot of the rules of reincarnation, but I feel that the rules contained in this sword art are far more than the rules of reincarnation, but also the rules of the earth, water. There are 7 or 8 rules of rule, light, and darkness. Jian Wushuang was completely silent in the enlightenment of that bodyguard swordsmanship. With enlightenment, his heart became even more shocked. Shocked the strength of the strong who left the 4 swordsmanship at first. The text left behind, the sword art of evolution, contains 7 or 8 kinds of rules at the same time, and they all blend together perfectly. And this is just one sword art. The other 3 sword arts also contain a variety of rules, and they are all integrated. In other words, what was the concept of the strong man who had at least mastered and integrated more than a dozen rules? Perhaps that strong man has learned the origin of the universe and has a very high understanding of the origin of the universe, so many of them are straightforward in the rules. But for me, the rules contained in this sword art can be ignored. I want to understand, and even master this artistic concept in this sword art, and then perfect my land. Guardian's trick. Jian Wushuang thought secretly. The guardian of the earth is the sword Wushuang who has been enlightened for 5,000 years in front of Gentianbei. Combined with the name of the type of bodyguard sword art created by the rules of the earth, this sword art is still in its infancy, and it is far from perfect. The perception of the earth's rules is actually not very high. But now Jian Shuangshuang has a feeling. The sword art that he is now enlightening, the endless artistic conception contained in it, as long as he can understand a little, and then integrate into his sword art, the guardianship of the earth is much stronger. Endless, this mood, Jian Wushuang has been in contact for a long time, and also realized. But his understanding of this artistic conception is not too high. At least he is far worse than the one who left 4 ancient characters on the sword stone. He only has to constantly enlighten, and then constantly improve. In the Red Cloud realm, the mad scramble continues. One by one, the universe is treasured. It has been born among the continents of the Red Cloud realm. Numerous strong men have been madly killed for it. Naturally, many strong men have fallen because of this. But these, for now, have nothing to do with Jian Wushuang. He stayed under this sword stone, completely silent in the enlightenment of the bodyguard sword art, and he had already messaged them to the Lord of the Heavens and the Lord of Time and Space: if there was no urgent matter, or the strongest treasure was born, don't come to disturb him. Now, he is full of his own guard of the earth trick. In a flash, Jian Wushuang has been enlightened under the sword stone for 400 years. In these 400 years, many great events have occurred in the Red Cloud realm, the biggest one of which is the first continent, the birth of the strongest treasure. The strongest treasure is enough to allow many masters to furiously fight for it. In the 10,000 years of the Red Cloud world, there will definitely be the strongest treasure to be born, and there will be more than one. Everyone has a bottom in this heart, but when the first strongest treasure was born, it still caused a storm. Countless strong men participated in this competition, even the masters. There were 3 of them. These 3 masters also fought a crazy battle, and finally was one of the strongest advanced master won the strongest treasure, and left. In that battle, although the master did not fall, there were nearly 100 rulers who could fall. The scene was scary. However, because the first continent is a certain distance from the third continent where Jian Wushuang is located, it is farther away from the location of the Lord of Time and Space and the Lord of the Heavens, so the 3 of them are too late to participate in the fight, and Jian Wushuang has always been there under the sword stone is enlightened. And during these 400 years of enlightenment, Jian Wushuang's progress is naturally very great. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor Mobile Version Reading URL. Chapter 3723. The first is here. The sword art in this sword stone is really incredible. I have been enlightened for 400 years, and in terms of rules alone, I have made great progress. I have almost completely mastered the rules of the earth. And in swordplay, I have created a trick to protect the earth. In the past 400 years, I have continuously improved it, which is far more powerful than before. Now, if my trick is unfolded, I am afraid that it is an ordinary master. The law is broken. As for the higher master, it is difficult to say whether it can be broken, but obviously there is still a lot of room for improvement in this trick, and I can continue to improve it. Jian Wushuang was extremely excited inside. With 400 years of enlightenment, he is even more anticipating the protection of the earth he created. He was very curious: if he had been enlightened in this way and perfected the protection of the earth trick, then what extent would this trick reach? But just then, Lord of the Blood Sword, save your life, come and save me. One of the orders in the sword warrior's Chenkuan ring sent an extremely anxious cry for help. Sword Wushuang looked, and took out the order. Master of Gucci, what's going on? Jian Wushuanglian asked. It's the pupil. The idiot's master at the other end of Lingfu said, just now, I got a top-class domain treasure in a fight, and it's all already in hand, and the fight is over. However, when I was about to leave, the pupil came here and asked me to hand over the top-class domain treasure. I refused, and Hitami shot directly at me. Now I can only rely on my whole cards to save my life. I can use Hitami's strength to break my ranks sooner or later. I see. The sword-free color became dignified. The Star Palace and the 3 major free alliances have entered the Red Cloud realm this time. These strong are scattered among 7 continents. Among them, the 3rd continent, the 4th continent, and the 6th continent have the existence of 3 swordsmen himself, the Lord of the Heavens and the Lord of Time and Space, so they have long explained that if there is an emergency in these 3 continents, they can be directly contacted. Now the master of the idiot encounters the pupil of the pupil, is in deep crisis, and naturally sends a message to himself. The Lord of the Gucci is one of the top powerhouses in the Star Palace. He has the ultimate strength of the 6 realms, and has a very strong life-saving ability. His strongest hole card is a net fire method. Among the rule masters are me and Blood. 2DI, no one can break open, but he is now encountering the pupil of the pupil. Jen was eyes narrowed. Mr. Hitami, it is a real master-level powerhouse, and it has a long time to become famous. Although it is only a primary master, but the strength is very strong among the primary masters. It is no wonder that the idiot master will ask for help. Already. In fact, under normal circumstances, the dignified dominion will almost never lower his status to deal with the ruler. Unless it is of great interest, or there is a treasure in the opponent's eyes. However, the master of the idiot is only a top-level field treasure. Even if it is the best, the value at best is barely equivalent to a peak treasure. For such a treasure, most of them dominate. He will not choose to reduce his status to the ruler. But this pupil is definitely one of the few who do not care about identity in this star field. Hitami, in this star field, is notorious. He was a lone strong man, without concern, even a disciple, so he never cared about the opinions of others, only knowing that he was his own way, and naturally, he never cared about his identity. As long as he was the treasure, he liked not to mention the ruler, even if he is an undead sage. He doesn't mind shooting directly to snatch. Like now, the master of the idiot gets that top-level domain treasure, which may not be enough to make the master of the idiot really heart, but such a treasure is of great value. Even the master will not ignore it, so he will now direct shot. Master of the idiot, pass me your current position. Jian Wushuangdao. The master of the idiot immediately passed his position to Jian Wushuang. After comparing Jian Wushuang on the star map, he immediately made a decision. I'm more than 50 million miles away from your location. It's such a long distance that even if I try my best to get on the road, it will take a while to reach you, Lord of the Idiots. You first use your net fire method as much as possible. Burst dragged the pupil, waiting for me to come. However, before your arrival, your net fire array has reached its limit and can no longer support it. Then you will give him the top field class arcana, a top field class arcana. If you can't do it, let it go, don't lose your life for this. Jian Wushuang urged. Yes, I will try my best to drag it. The idiot gritted his teeth. Without any delay, Jian Wushuang left for the position of the master of the idiot. Along the way, Jian Wushuang reached his extreme speed. No way, this time he was not trying to fight for the treasure, but to save his life. For him, a top-class domain treasure is actually nothing, but the life of the ancient idiot is different. Star Palace, although there are many powerful men in His Majesty, there are not many masters who truly reach the rule of level 6 and above. As for the ultimate level of 6 realms, only 2 masters are considered to be idiots. Naturally, the 2 extreme powers of the 6 realms are of great importance to the horoscope. If one of them falls, it must be a great loss to the horoscope. The 3rd continent, within a vast void. Boom boom. Endless pure white flames are burning frantically, covering thousands of miles of void around. This tens of thousands of miles of void are completely caught in the sea of pure white fire, and in the middle of the sea of fire, hey, huh. A fierce roar rang continuously, shaking the world. Ha ha. I think him underestimated you this, and your flame method is quite strange, even this seat can hardly be broken. Echoes echoed between the heavens and the earth, and there was a towering blood-colored figure standing in the middle of the pure white sea of fire. This figure was filled with a thick cloud of blood, the cloud of blood was rolling, the endless killing breath spread out. This figure is the pupil of the pupil. And not far in front of the pupil of the pupil, in the very center of the pure white sea of fire, the guts of the idiot clenched his teeth tightly, looking rather ugly. Master Tong, I have sent a message to my housemaster. The housemaster and the space and time housemaster will arrive here immediately. If you are smart, then leave quickly, or wait for my housemaster to arrive. The idiot whispered. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor Mobile Version Reading URL. Chapter 3724. Second more. Haha, the master of your house. The pupil is the one who looks at the idiot with a playful expression. Boy, do NT think that this seat has always been alone, without concern, you think that this seat has no knowledge of this star domain information, This seat, it is clear that this time the Red Cloud Realm was born. Your Lord of the Palace did not come to the Red Cloud Realm at all. As for what you said at that time, the Emperor of the Palace of Heaven was now on the 4th continent. How can I get here? Don't say they can't be here at all. Even if they did, what can they do? My pupils have been in this star field for so many years. I am not even afraid of the higher masters. Will I care about the 2 primary masters of the main palace master, the master of space and time? Really a joke. Boy, I advise you not to struggle anymore. Honestly, give the top-class treasure, and the magic circle that you are currently performing, to this seat. This seat may spare you a life, otherwise, wait, this seat breaks this formation, you will die. The words of the pupil make the master of the idiot extremely ugly. He didn't expect this pupil to be so shameless, not only to deal directly with a rule master for his top field class, but now he sees the net fire law that he uses, but he also needs to hand it over go out. This net fire formation is his strongest hole card and his strongest support. This law formation was fortunately obtained when he was smashing in Quicksand Demon Realm many years ago. After so many years of smashing down, this law formation has saved his life more than once. To him, this method is far more important than that of the top field. Now, the pupil asked him to hand in the law circle together. How can it be? He would rather die than pay. Now, he can only hope that the Lord of the Bloodsword will arrive earlier. Although he does not know the true strength of Jian Wushuang, from the position of Jian Wushuang in the Shingon and the attitude of Shen Shinto, the master of space and time, to him, Jian Wushuang is even a little bit worse than the master. Not too much. As long as he arrives and joins hands with himself, it should be possible to block the pupil. Stubbornness. Since you don't pay, let's die. The pupil's voice was cold, the blood cloud of horror rolled, and he blasted away with shocking power toward the pure white sea of fire. The master of the idiot can only rely on this magic array to barely resist, but with the real strength of the pupil when the eruption started, his pressure naturally increased. As time passed, he became more and more difficult to resist, and the net fire array gradually reached the limit it could bear. Damn, the Lord of the Bloodswords, why not come? The face of the idiot's master has been completely twisted. He has now realized that the net of fire is somewhat unsustainable. He can only grit his teeth to continue to resist this, and his heart is praying that Jian Wushuang can come here earlier. However, with a distance of 50 million miles, even if Jian Wushuang rushed at full speed, it would take some time. In the void around this pure white sea of fire, there are many rulers gathered here. Many of these rulers were involved in the previous top-class scramble for the top class, and some were aware of the huge movements here that came here. The masters of these rules stood in the void around the net of fire, and watched the scene ahead. When seeing the master of the idiot being pushed to the limit by Hitami, many rule masters secretly booed. This idiot's own master is very powerful, and he has a life-saving hole card of the net fire magic array. According to the reason, it is only possible to meet the master, which can almost go sideways, but he didn't expect his luck to be so bad. I met a master who is also a pupil who has no regard for identity. This idiot's master is indeed unlucky. We have a clear idea of Hitami's temper, but everyone who has followed him has a headache. No way, unless the master of the idiot handed over the top-level domain and his net of fire, he was afraid he would die. The top-class field is okay. Anyway, he just got it. When he is out of luck, he just handed it over. The problem is that the pupil is still interested in his net fire method. Everyone knows this net fire method. The battlefield is the strongest hole card of the Gucci Lord. Would the Gucci Lord surrender such a treasure? That's right, if I were, I wouldn't pay. There are still many rulers. Most of them are sympathetic to the guilty lord, and feel that the guilty lord is unlucky. With the passage of time, those who watched the battle around could clearly feel the lord of the Gucci, and could no longer support it. At this time, the sword is unparalleled, there is still more than 20 million miles away from this void, and it will take a while to arrive. Haha, boy, you can't hold it. The wanton laughter resounded in this world, rumbling. The world shook and the endless power burst out, smashing the pure white flames that covered the thousands of miles on the battlefield. The flames were finally carried. Can't stop the impact of that terrible power, and it dissipates directly. The master of the idiot's net fire was defeated by the pupil. Without the hindrance of the net fire method, the strength of the idiot master could not face the pupil. Knowing this, many people around sighed, sighing. Even the master of the idiot smiled horribly, with a hint of despair in his eyes. But when the pupil master was about to slay the ancient idiot master in front of him, a figure did not know when he came to this perimeter of the void. Here, it's quite lively. A bit of fun and low laughter sounded in this world. This low laughter caught everyone's attention. Even the pupil, who was about to make a shot, stopped his movements and looked at the person. After seeing clearly the appearance of the person, Hitami could not help but frown. The comer was a weird old man with a scarlet cape. The old man had a lean face, a hooked nose, and small eyes, as if the eyes of a mouse, and he was slightly squinting, giving a very shrewd look. He smiled, and even made him feel a bit more wicked. The smell of this weird old man is actually not strong, it is obviously only the level of the ruler. But the same rule master Hitami did not put the idiot master in his eyes at all, but when he saw this strange old man, Hitami's brow frowned slightly. Ming Bone. It's a bone. Among the many rulers of this star domain, he is said to have the most means and the strongest life-saving ability. It turned out to be him. The masters of many rules around the battlefield, after seeing this weird old man, also showed surprise. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor Mobile Version Reading URL. Chapter 3725. The first is here. Wicked Bone Monster. In this starfield, fame is too great. In the eyes of many powerful people in this starfield, if you want to choose the ruler with the strongest strength, it is undoubtedly decided between the Lord of the Bloodsword and the Blood 2D. But to say that the owner of the most difficult rule, I'm afraid that 99% of people will think of this wicked old man the first time. This wicked bone monster is famous for its many means and is extremely difficult to entangle. He had faced the dominating powerhouse more than once, and even directly faced the high-ranking dominator. The opponent showed his best, but still had nothing to do with him. He even dares to directly calculate the master in this starfield, and therefore he has offended many masters, but so far, he still lives well. Such a person, even if it is only a ruler, even the pupil at this moment, dare not ignore his existence directly. Mingu, what are you doing here? The pupil didn't rush to start, but turned to ask. The old man just happened to pass here, just to see that you, the supreme master, shot against a ruler regardless of his identity, so he came here to take a look. The bone old man laughed. Just a look. Hitami's voice was low. I wanted to see it, but after seeing that the person you are dealing with is the master of this idiot, the old man changed his mind again. Mingu old strange. What do you mean? Hitami looked pale. This idiot doesn't have much relationship with the old man, but the old man's friendship with the Shingong is not bad, so I can only let the pupil to sell the old man a face. The bone strange smiled. As soon as this word came out, all the people around him were stunned, and even the idiot master himself was extremely surprised. The guilty old man said this, apparently intending to intervene in this matter. Mingu, do you want to sell your face in this seat? You are not the ruler of the rules. Why, do you want to sell face in this seat? Tongzhu sighed. Well, Master Tong, since you don't sell face, let's see if you can kill the old idiot under the old man's eyelids. The bone monster smiled at will, but in the laughter, with an absolute confidence. Hitami's main gaze was slightly narrowed. The whole world was silent. But suddenly the streamer flashed, and the pupil was already shooting like lightning. The terrifying mastery breath instantly covered and oppressed the master of the idiot, and his speed burst to the extreme. Obviously, he intends to ride the ghost and the ghost to the extreme. Then he will kill the idiot master as fast as possible. But at the moment Hitami took the initiative, the skeletal figure standing on the edge also suddenly moved. He just shook it briefly, but it felt as if it was teleporting, passing directly through the battlefield. Before the pupil of the pupil had appeared in front of the master of the ancient idiot, the wicked figure of the skeletal body blocked in front of him first. Caught death. Hitami's face was cold, and his intentions skyrocketed. I saw him holding a red stick with one hand. This stick exuded a very strong sense of destruction, and smashed directly towards the ghost bone monster. The ghostly old man saw this without fear. He waved his hand, and saw a cold knife, as if it was a world-breaking, straight cut out. After the two collided head-to-head, after all, the pupil was a powerful player with a domineering level, and the power was still far stronger than that of the ghostly bone. The first time this collision broke the blade of light, even with the ghostly bone blamed the whole figure back a few steps. Well, it is worthy of being the master. After the ghostly man stood still, he still had a smile on his face, and his breath was not weakened. Mingu, since you are going to make this trip to muddy water, then you will die with the master of the idiot. Hitemis' killing intention skyrocketed. Do you still want to kill the old man? Mingwa laughed with a chuckle. It is not the old man who is arrogant. In this star domain, no one can kill the old man except the top masters. As soon as the voice fell, I saw the ghostly figure of the ghostly bone swaying. In time, there were hundreds of thousands of ghostly figures in the void. Hundreds of thousands of guy bone old monsters are exactly the same in both their demeanor and sentiment. The masters of the many rules watching the battle, covered with the power of the soul for the first time, but couldn't see which one was the true deity of the ghost. Is it a phantom? It's a little trick. Hitami snorted coldly and waved his sleeve robe. Immediately, there was a majestic divine power condensing in front of him, turning into a spiky divine power, and he shot in all directions in no time. These divine powers are thorny and dense, and they pass through hundreds of thousands of skullbone monsters, but there is no slight wave. What? Hitemis' face changed. I senti his deity in these figures? Instead, he performed hideous techniques. No, if he had performed the concealment technique of concealment, he should not have concealed the power of my soul to detect it. Hitami stared. The concealed body technique can avoid the exploration of the soul's power. Like the sword Wushuang, he has practiced the Waingshu technique from the beginning. However, this technique is okay in the face of the general strong, but if you face the real strong, the other party can see through at a glance. And the pupil master, the mighty masterclass master, a rule master who has performed the concealment of the body form cannot hide him. In this case, that is to say that the deity of the ghostly bone is indeed among these hundreds of thousands of statues, but he can't find it and can't attack it. Even if I can't find your deity, my target is not you. Hitami hummed slightly, followed the figure, and chose to ignore the ghosts and continue to kill the idiot. But his figure just moved. It was said that under the eyelids of the old man, you can't kill this idiot's master, you believe it. With a bit of ridiculous voice suddenly ringing next to Hitemis' body, I saw a bone monster figure closest to Hitemis' body directly waving his sword. The sword immediately cut a horse in the void and swept straight towards Hitemis' head. Hitemis' figure had to retreat immediately and return to the place where he stood before. Looking again at the surrounding hundreds of thousands of gull bone monsters, the pupil's complexion has become very ugly. After a brief fight, although the ghostly bones only exposed some of the means, this part of the means has already made Tongzhu very difficult. Just as the old-fashioned ghost bones himself said, without his consent, the pupil of the pupil could not have killed the idiot under his eyelids. Genius, remember the address of this site in a second. Mobile reading URL, M. Chapter 3726. Second more. Strange bones, do you really want to oppose this seat? Hitami screamed sharply. I'm against you. The ghostly moan deliberately groaned for a moment before he said, in fact, the old man does not have to stop you. Hitami looked. The idiot master not far from the void behind the bonbons was frightened. Master Tong, you may not know yet, my husband has been in this red cloud world for some time, but luck is not very good, but so far I have only got 2 treasures, and they are only primary treasures. This is really not a good harvest. Wei Jiu said strangely. The pupil's main eyes and his pupils narrowed, he glanced at the ghostly bone, and said lowly, what are you going to do? Let's talk straight. It's very simple, a top-level treasure armor, the old man will no longer care about it. The bone monster laughed. As soon as this word came out, there was a commotion in the surrounding void. This wicked bone, he really dares. Dare to greet the pupil, and ask for the treasure from the pupil. Among the masters of the rules, I am afraid that he would dare to do this alone. This is also normal. The ghost bone monster is famous for its many means and strong life-saving ability. It is even more difficult to entangle it. If he is unwilling to give way, the pupil of the pupil really has no way to take that ancient idiot. The bone old man has lived for so many years, and there are many offending masters. He doesn't even care about the high master, and how can he care about a pupil in this area? I have to say that a ruler dares to ask for the treasure directly from the master, and this wicked bone monster is indeed admirable. Many of the rulers around have a trace of excitement and admiration in their hearts. It must be noted that the ruler and master of rules is a huge watershed. The masters are high, and the ruler is in front of the master, but the ants. The masters of many rules in this starfield have long been accustomed to the supremacy of the masters, but today they saw a master who eats in the hands of the master of the rules. Of course, the masters of these rules feel relieved and comfortable. At that moment, the pupil was extremely gloomy. Although sometimes he did pay attention to his identity and disregard his face, but a master was stunned by a rule. When so many people were asked for the treasure, he was still more or less I feel uncomfortable on my face. He stared at the ghostly ghost, but he hesitated. Face or something is not important, the key is interest. It's nothing more precious than a top-level arcana warframe. The top-level domain arcana that the idiot lord just got is comparable to 2 or even 3 top-level arcana warframes, and his net of fire. Quite mysterious. I am afraid that the value is higher than the average peak treasure. If I kill him, I can get more benefits than a top treasure. The most important thing is, there is something in the idiot lord that makes me long for that treasure. Master Tong narrowed his eyes slightly, and Yu Guang inadvertently glanced at the idiot master behind him. Everyone thought that he would kill the Gucci Lord regardless of his status, just to get the top field class treasure of the Gucci Lord just in hand, and the net fire magic circle. In fact, it's not that simple. This pupil has a very special treasure on his body. The most important reason is that there is something that the special treasure desires on the Lord of the Gucci. Anyway, you must kill this idiot master, get his ring command, and as for a top-level treasure, it is nothing. Hitami had already made a decision at the bottom of his heart, and immediately he waved his hand, a silver armor with exquisite top treasure atmosphere, and rushed directly to the ghost. The ghost bone monster reached out to take over, and after a little consciousness sensed, he nodded slightly. It's worthy to be the master, and he has an extraordinary wealth. This shot is also very generous. Ming Bone, the top arcana warframe has been given to you. Now, you can let it go. Hitami asked Shensheng. Not in a hurry. The bone monster still shook his head. Ming Bone. Hitami suddenly became furious. Haha, don't be in a hurry before you anger. The old bone ghost smiled. Since you have given the top treasure to the old man will naturally keep his promise and stop participating in this matter. I haven't anxious to leave, I just want to ask the pupil, you are so reckless of your identity, even give the old man a top arcane battle armor, but also to kill the Gucci master, is it really just for the Gucci master which top-tier domain is precious? Well, a single piece of the top-level arcane warframe is naturally not worthy of this seat, but the magic circle that the idiot lord used to hinder me is quite special. This seat is more interesting. Hitami Main Road. Oh, is that really the case? Minggu looked strangely at Tongzhu. Otherwise do you think? Hitami suppressed the anger in his heart. The ghostly brow frowned, and didn't think about it. In fact, there is nothing to think about. The pupil is not famous for his identity in this starfield. He will stare at the master of the idiot, and it is normal to want the treasure in the hand of the master of the idiot. It is not questionable. That being the case, I will let the old man out now, and you can do whatever you want, but although the old man has given up, if you can't kill the idiot in the future, it is no wonder the old man. Bone monsters play with taste. Well, as long as you don't get in the way, this one is going to kill this idiot master, then no one can stop it. Hitami hummed. Is that so? Not necessarily. The skeletal grin grinned, and the strength of his soul had sensed the arrival of a person. The master of the idiot behind the wicked bone monster has also received a message, and his face has a hint of surprise. In the void not far away, a figure had appeared, and rushed towards this void at the fastest speed. The guilty monster has just made his appearance, and the pupil has no time to continue to attack the master of the idiot. The figure has come to the center of this void and stands on the side of the master of the idiot. Master of the idiot, are you okay? Jian Wushuang asked. It's all right, fortunately, Mr. Mingu shot in time and blocked the pupil for a while, otherwise I must have died and could not wait. The Lord of the Bloodsword is here. The idiot said. Jian was eyes swept away, and he saw the old ghost of the ghost bone, and immediately laughed. Senior ghost bone, thank you this time. Where, the old man is just to get a top arcana warframe, but it's not because of you and the faces of your star palace. The bone old man laughed. The people around them were excited again when they saw Jian Wushuang's arrival. Remember the first domain name in this book. Jiutian God Emperor Mobile Version reading URL. Chapter 37:27. The first is here. The Lord of the Bloodsword is the Lord of the Bloodsword of the Star Palace. The Lord of the Bloodsword, but the strongest of the rulers in our star domain. I heard that he was also smashing on this third continent. Now it seems that he should have received a call from the Lord of the Idiots for help. I came here on purpose. The Lord of the Bloodsword is here. It's a good show, but can the Bloodsword Master alone be able to cope with the pupil? It's hard to say that although the Lord of the Bloodsword is very strong and invincible among the Lord of the Rules, he doesn't have the endless means like the ghosts and bones. He just wants him to face a master. The rulers of the many rules watching around are talking about it. The masters of these rules, the impression of Jian Wushuang, still stays more than 10,000 years ago, in the Magic Smoke Valley, Jian Wushuang's own power to defeat the 5 rule masters in the battle. In that battle, although Jian Wushuang showed the invincible strength of the ruler of the rule, compared to the master, it is still 2 different levels. Therefore, most people are full of doubts about whether Jian Wushuang can cope with the pupil. Men Bone, well, revisit the old one later, let me kill the pupil first. Jian Wushuang laughed aloud. Okay, but this pupil is not weak, you have to be careful. The bone old man smiled lightly. Jian Wushuang is a very relaxed look. As for the pupil, when he saw the sword Wushuang coming, he didn't know why he was stuck there. Yes, he did hold back. The reason for this is that he was not surprised by the sudden arrival of sword unparalleled, but because of the state of that special treasure at his moment. I don't know why, when the sword Wushuang arrived and appeared in the void in front of him, the special treasure on him was completely crazy. It was an unprecedented excitement and an unprecedented desire. It was like a wolf that had been hungry for 10 days and 10 nights, and suddenly saw a sheep. The treasure on him was now so hot and crazy. What happened? What is there on the Lord of the Bloodsword, which will make my treasure so exciting and crazy? It's crazy. Ever since I got that treasure, I have never seen it so excited and eager. The pupil's gaze became extremely hot instantly. But it was so hot that he soon covered it up. Above the emptiness, the ghostly ghost has let to the emptiness next to it, leaving only the sword master, the idiot master and the pupil master standing there. Jian Wushuang naturally stood with the master of the idiot. The Lord of the Bloodsword, the strength of this pupil is really terrible. It is definitely the strongest among the primary masters. My strongest card Net Fire team has also been broken by him now. The law is working again, and at his speed, it is difficult for me and Tu to escape directly from him. So, I'm afraid you can only join hands and find a way to deal with him 1 or 2 times, said the idiot. Unable to perform the net fire method, the master of the idiot must not be able to deal with the pupil. But he knows that the Lord of the Bloodsword is very strong, and there must be some vitality for the 2 to join forces. But after hearing his words, Jian Wushuang waved his hand. Master of the idiot, please step back. This pupil, just leave it to me. Leave it to you alone? The Lord of the idiot stumbled. I am enough. Jian Wushuang was very confident. Get back. The idiot's gaze was slightly fixed. He glanced at Jian Wushuang, and did not think much, but swept away in the void behind him. Seeing this, Hitami didn't mean to stop at all. After Jian Wushuang came to this void, Master Tong now only saw Jian Wushuang in his eyes. As for the idiot master, he didn't care. Even if the master of the idiot turned and fled now, he would not chase again. For him, sword unparalleled is the first goal now. The Lord of the Blood Sword, the strongest ruler in this field of universally recognized rules. Master Hitami grinned. He glanced at the idiot lord in the back, and his face smiled even more. It's time to deal with this seat. It's really arrogant. Arrogance. Jian Wushuang only smiled slightly, but there was a hint of excitement in his heart. No wonder he was excited. You must know that since he broke through the rules of the rule and his strength sword, he has never really competed fairly with the dominant power. Although he played against Tian Peng's master and Tian Zhu, he even beheaded and killed 3 masters in the early world of God. However, Tian Peng dominated that time, he just passively blocked Tian Peng dominated 3 attacks. Tian Zhu, it was just a simple discussion with him, so that he has a basic understanding of his strength. As for the 3 masters that were beheaded in the early divine realm, those 3 masters were restricted by the heavens and could not exert their strength at all. So even now, he has never fought against a master who can burst into full force. Until now, the pupil was standing in front of him. Hitami, the strength of this starfield is an elementary master standing at the top. Jian Wushuang's mind flashed the information of this pupil. The pupil is not only strong, but also has many treasures on his body. It is said that he not only has the strongest treasure warrior, but also has the strongest treasure war armor on him. In addition, his ability to save lives is not weak. Even if he encounters a high master, he cannot be afraid. Such a powerful master, for Jian Wushuang, is just a suitable opponent. This is the first time I have battled with a dominating powerhouse in the universe battlefield, and there are still so many people watching around this battle. I took the pupil to stand up. The sword flashed in the eyes of Wu Shuang, and even when he screamed, "Hitami, hand over 3 peak treasures, and stop doing today's things, otherwise my blood sword will be chasing you to the end of the earth." This path contains a huge burst of mighty power, and it exploded fiercely between heaven and earth. The void was quiet. Silence. Everyone was silent, with their eyes widened, staring at Jian Wushuang. They just said that the Lord of the Blood Sword and the Lord of the Gucci teamed up. I do not know if hope to block that pupil. But who would have thought that the arrival of the Lord of the Blood Swords would instead force Do Tong to surrender 3 peaks to the treasure? Hasn't he figured out the situation on the court? Even the owner of the idiot is extremely confused at this moment, for unknown reasons. Boy, so daring. Hitami smiled angrily, and her entire face was twisted. He didn't have any other nonsense, so he just shot. Dear, click in and give a good comment. The higher the score, the faster the update. It is said that a beautiful wife was found at the end of the new score. Chapter 37-28. Second more. Banging. The magnificent power of the dominating level formed a huge prison, and the overwhelming assault swords came in oppression. As mighty as prison. Reaching the level of dominance, the power of the divine power alone is infinitely stronger than the main rule. Under normal circumstances, the mastery of the level of divine oppression, the rule of the general rule cannot bear. Under the pressure of this majestic power, that pupil stepped suddenly, across the void to the front of Jian Wushuang, the red stick in his hand, carrying the breath of destruction, and smashed directly. The terrifying power that it contains has caused a ripple of space in the void of the red cloud realm. These spaces ripple together, spreading wildly around. The sword is unparalleled. An extremely cold and terrifying sword intention swept the world instantly. The great void was caught in the coldness of zero because of the scabbard. The chill was like a knife. Even at a long distance, it still shaved on the faces of those rulers present. That sword. The eyes of everyone watching the battle were instantly frozen in the sword without hands exuding a cold, heart-wrenching black Excalibur. That black magic sword is exactly the Huangquan magic sword. The strongest cosmic treasure. The Lord of the Blood Sword has the strongest treasure. The surrounding void immediately caused a commotion. The strongest treasures, even if they dominate, many are not. But the ruler of Sword Wushuang district has the strongest magic sword in his hand, which was not expected by everyone present. Even the pupil of the pupil was surprised when he saw the magic sword that Sword Master Shou took out. Although surprised, but the pupil master still did not put Zhen Wushuang in his eyes. Well, what if there is the strongest cosmic treasure, it's still just an ant. Haitamis' eyes flashed sharply, and the smashed red stick made a shock, and the power suddenly rose again. Endless. Zhen Wushuang directly out of the sword, a sword light with endless hatred, instantly greeted the red stick. This sword light not only contains horrible power, but also carries a trace of the origin of the Kendo universe, which makes the power of swordsmanship to a whole new level instantly. Clang. The two collided head-on, and an arc flashed away instantly. What? There was a hint of surprise on Haitamis' face. From the sword light displayed by Zhen Wushuang, he felt an extremely arrogant, not even weaker than his strength. The pupil's figure immediately regressed, and Zhen's stature also regressed. Humph. After standing still, Haitamis' gaze was cold again. He held the stick in his hands at the same time, destroying the burst of breath, and the blood cloud of the whole body suddenly soared to the extreme. The breath of his entire body is a bit higher than just before, his body is shaking, and he is once again killing swordsman. Sword as rainbow. Zhen Wushuang held the sword alone. Zhen Feng pointed directly at the pupil, and did not mean to retreat, so he greeted him positively. Clang. Clang. Only one heavy clash was heard, and the sound of Vane's crazy collision continued to sound. In the middle of the battlefield, the two figures clamored frantically, and the terrible mighty power ran away frantically. The fierce battle between the two is obviously in the stage of fierce heat. The masters of the many rules watching the surroundings have long been stunned. Domination battle. This is level battle. The Lord of the Blood Sword, how could he resist the Lord? How can that be? Exclaiming sounds continued to sound in the surrounding void. Unlike the old-fashioned ghost bones who rely on special means to entangle with their living together, the sword in front of them is unparalleled, but they are fighting fiercely with the pupil. A ruler collided head-on with a master, but also a master with a very strong power, and they even fought against each other. Dominate the combat power. The Lord of the Blood Sword already has the power to dominate. Everyone knew it immediately. If you can fight with a very powerful master, you will be in the rank of master. Boom. It was another fierce roar, and the two figures in the void finally separated. The Lord of the Blood Sword, this seat despises you. I didn't expect a ruler of yours to have mastery of combat power. Haitamis' eyes were already bloodshot, with a hint of madness. But even then, you are not qualified to be mad in front of this seat. Stolen. Hitami kills the sky. At the moment of his body scrabbling, the large cloud of blood that pervaded his body was actually a frenzy, and in the blink of an eye, a majestic three-headed demon formed. The three demon gods also held red sticks, and as Haitamis' hands moved, they were crushed and bombarded directly. The same stick method, but at the moment when these three deities are condensed, this stick power is at least twice as strong as before. Is this your real strength? Zhen Wushuang's mouth slightly tilted, and there was no surprise in his heart. Hitami, who can make such a big name in this starfield, of course, his strength is not just that. Unfortunately, such strength is not enough. Zhen Wushuang's eyes condense, the magical power of life, the sky cut, immediately unfolded. These two mysteries are performed at the same time, and the magic power of the sword unparalleled has increased by 3 times. More than 3 times the divine power of the primary master. This has barely reached the threshold of the higher master. Kill. Zhen Wushuang has no fear, relying on mysterious skills to greatly improve his own strength, once again fight with the living together. The two battled madly again, and Zhen Wushuang's understanding of the origin of Kendo universe was fully exerted. Each sword that was cast contained the origin of Kendo universe. That sword art was extremely mysterious and mighty. Although the pupil's stick technique is also strong, he has not realized the origin of the universe, and is obviously inferior to Zhen Wushuang's sword skill in the mystery. As for the power, although he has performed mystery and the power has increased a lot, It is at best comparable to Jian Wushuang. The power is comparable, but Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship occupies a great advantage, so the pupil is actually in a disadvantage. How could this be? In the crazy battle with Jian Wushuang, the pupil is now horrified and unbelievable. I have already shown my strongest strength, and I can't even win him, even. I still underwind. How can that be? How can the strength be such a master of rules? The pupil is completely frightened by Jian Wushuang's revealed strength. Not just him, the rulers of the many rules watching the battle around are also at a loss at this moment. Remember the first domain name in this book. 3 heads of mobile version reading URL, M. Chapter 3729. The first is here. No one at the scene had thought that the Lord of the Bloodsword, who was just the master of the rule, could not only fight with Hitomi directly, but even if Hitomi broke out with all his strength, the master of the Bloodsword still had the upper hand with his fight. It is no longer possible that the Lord of the Bloodsword has the dominance level of combat power, but his combat power has surpassed that of most elementary masters. Even the top of the class of primary masters such as Hitomi, the battle power is obviously worse than that of the Bloodsword master. Lord. Master Tong, this is your strongest strength. Jian's eyes were cold and staring at Master Tong. Dare to deceive me without a star at this level. Honestly hand over 3 peak treasures, otherwise I want you to look good today. Presumptuous. Hitomi was furious. But no matter how furious he is at the moment, Jian Wushuang's revealed strength is indeed slightly stronger than him. Suddenly, Hitomi slammed and said coldly, "Boy, this place admits to look down on you, and also look down on your star house. I didn't expect that a monster like you appeared in this star house. It is only the master of the rules, but the combat power is stronger than the average master. However, just this, you want this seat to bow your head and ask this seat to surrender 3 peaks to the Paularis in vain, but it is a dream. Even if you are a little stronger than this one now, just a little stronger, how can you take this one?" Hitomi has no fear. He admits that Jian Wushuang is slightly stronger than him. But just being a little stronger, just a little upper hand in the fierce battle, cannot even suppress him. How will he be afraid? Don't change your head, right? Then hit you down. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold, and I saw him step out. On the Huangquan Excalibur in his hand, a terror of mighty power suddenly condensed. Wow! A sword is cut out, and the void is completely chaotic. There was no roar or explosive sound, and the sword that Wu Shuangshuang cut out at this moment did not seem to have such terrible power. Of course, the magic sword fell, but an icy sword light directly cut the space relentlessly, ruthlessly tore everything in front, and cut it relentlessly towards the pupil of the pupil. Swordplay, Huangquan. Under a sword, the blue falls. This sword was the shocking sword technique that forcibly broke the sword system of Emperor 13 during the battle with Emperor 13. This sword art is not only terrible, but most importantly, there is a breath of cosmic law in the sword art. That breath of cosmic law was very weak at first, just a trace of it, but after Jian Wushuang's full enlightenment under Gentianbei for 5,000 years, he cast this sword again, and the cosmic law contained in the sword art, the breath, is obviously richer than before. The power of swordsmanship and Xuanao are completely stronger than before. There is more to the origin of Kendo universe in sword art alone. This sword can no longer be measured by a specific peerless level, but there is no doubt that this sword is the strongest sword of the sword unparalleled. The strongest sword was cut directly to the pupil, and at the same time it was cut, the sword Wushuang also used the will power given by the original universe law. You know, the will power given by the rules of the universe is unique. It can double the base power of Jian Wushuang's full-blown outbursts. In other words, before Jian Wushuang used the magical power of life plus the operation after cutting the sky, the power of the outbreak of divine power was 3 times the power of the primary dominator, and now using this will power, that is 6 times the power of the primary master. 6 times, how amazing. Boom. The terrifying Zhenguang tears everything relentlessly. The pupil also seemed to be aware of the extraordinary sword Zhenshuang's sword, and his gaze was condensed. Then he held the red long stick with both hands at the same time, and the three-headed demon behind him issued a scream of a scream, followed the long stick zoomed in loudly, rumbling straight out. In the blink of an eye, it collided with the sword light directly. Clang! The sound of a metal impact sounded, and the moment the red stick was in contact with Zhenguang, the shocking power contained in Zhenguang immediately changed the direction of shock, and the whole body of the pupil was unstable. The ruthless, tortured sword light continued to cut at the pupil. In the end, there was no hindrance on the body of the pupil. Puff! A large mouthful of blood spurted out from the pupil's main mouth, and this blood stained his body armor. Hitemis' face paled a little, and his figure was extremely embarrassing and hurled backwards. This scene dazzled the owners of the many rules watching the battle around. Spit, bleed. Daughter pupil, fight with the Lord of the Bloodsword in the face, but was spit by the sword of the Bloodsword. He didn't succeed in sneak attack, it was a frontal fight, defeating Hitemis' offensive, and then spitting Hitemis' blood. The many rulers present were almost unable to believe their eyes. No way, this scene is too incredible. The difference between the ruler and the ruler is too wide. It is recognized that all ants are under the ruler. But the scene before it completely broke common sense. The Lord of the Rules can also be comparable to, or even overcome, the Lord. Didn't see now that the pupil of the pupil was vomiting blood by the sword of the Bloodsword? At this moment, the pupil of the pupil was also stunned. How could he be forced to do this? Hitomi stared at Zhen Wuxuang in horror. Others don't know his strength and hole cards, but he knows it well. After performing mysticism, after appearing 3 demon gods all over his body, his strength can even fight with the High Master in a short time. This strength, the strongest stick, was completely crushed by the opponent. Even when the opponent defeated his offensive, he also spit blood. Although, for the dignified master, it is okay to spit 2 mouths, and the loss of divine power is not too great, but this means that Yu Wei of Zhen Wuxuang's sword has hurt him. Bad my offensive, he can still hurt me with the power of his sword. Hitomi's heart set off a huge wave. You know, what he wears is the strongest arcane warframe. He has the strongest armor of the treasure armor, but he was still injured by Yu Wei, the sword of Zhen Wuxuang. What does this mean? Explain that Zhen Wuxuang's power of that sword just now is incredible. The High Master, even among the High Masters, only the top ones are able to perform such a mighty attack. The Lord of the Bloodsword, his combat power is much stronger than the ordinary High Masters. Hitomi's heart finally began to tremble. Genius, remember the address of this site in a second. Mobile reading URL, M. Chapter 3730. Second more. Hitomi has been in the 3 battlefields for so many years. He is the master, and he has faced many times. But relying on his own strength and his strongest treasure, the High Masters couldn't help him, and it was difficult to hurt him. But Zhen Wuxuang just had that sword, so that Master Tong understands that Zhen Wuxuang's strongest combat power is definitely more than most advanced masters. Only the top talents in advanced masters can burst out of that kind of power to defeat him. At the same time as the offensive, he was injured through the strongest treasure. Such strength is enough to make Tong Juxin's heart afraid. Unlike the pupil Zhu and the shock in the hearts of everyone present, Zhen Wuxuang saw his pupil vomiting blood, but his frown was slightly frowned. He didn't expect that he showed the strongest strength and showed the strongest sword, but the result was just barely letting the pupil to vomit blood, and it did not let the pupil to lose much power. The strongest treasure battle gear, it is unusually peak. The treasure warframe can be compared. Zhen Wuxuang secretly said. He knew that if the pupil had no strongest armor, but only the highest peak armor, then the sword he had just cast with the Huangquan Excalibur would definitely cause him to be severely wounded. 10% or 20% of the divine power, but the divine power of the pupil is now very small. There is the strongest armor of the treasure warrior, and I alone can't kill him. Zhen Wuxuang understood this, but followed with a cold hum. Even if he can't kill, he must be taught fiercely. The sword has no double-sided capacity and is cold, carrying the mighty power, and shot again. To this pupil, Zhen Wuxuang has a trace of disgust. As the master, he doesn't care about his own identity, and in this area of the star, he arbitrarily shoots against the ruler, even without reason. People who are totally disregarded for their looks will be spurned. What's more, this pupil is not the first time to provoke the Star Palace. Jian Wushuang has seen the information before. This pupil has made several shots against the strong men of the Star Palace in the 3 battlefields over the years. The Xingong planted a follow-up once and paid a great price. It's just that because this pupil is strong and has the strongest treasure armor, Star Palace has always been unable to take him. He can only be angry and dare not speak, but he does not want this pupil to become stronger. This time in the Red Cloud Realm, he also stared at the master of the idiot, and almost made the 2 of the Xingong 6 extremes, losing one. So again and again to oppress Xingong, Jian Wushuang now has the ability, of course, to give this pupil a profound lesson. Even if he can't kill him, at least it is necessary for Master Tong to remember this lesson. In the future in the Red Cloud Realm, including when fighting in the 3 major battlefields, when he meets the strong man in his star house, he will have a little bit of scruples and dare wanton killer. Jian Wushuang broke out with all his strength. Although he had been fighting with Hitami before, he never used the willpower given by the laws of the universe, nor did he fully exert his sword skills. But now, the sword unparalleled under full force, the displayed combat power can only be described as sturdy or terrible. His divine power is powerful. His sword art is extremely mysterious, and the origin of Kendo universe in each sword is extremely strong. Although the pupil also burst out with all his strength, he fought against Jian Wushuang, but was completely crushed by Jian Wushuang. One side. Anyone with a good eye can see that Hitami is not Jian Shuang's opponent at all. It's too strong, has too powerful. His divine power is definitely higher level dominance. It is stronger than ordinary high-level dominions, and much stronger than me. His swordsmanship is even more terrifying. His understanding of Kendo is much higher than all the Kendo strong men I have seen. The origin of Kendo, yes, he has entered the origin of Kendo universe, and every sword he casts. They all contain the rich origins of Kendo universe. When the swordplay is performed, it is not only extremely powerful, but also extremely mysterious, which is not comparable to me at all. Perseverance is comparable to the divine power of a higher master. In addition, in his opinion, even the top master may not be comparable to the Kendo understanding of Jian Wushuang. This has created Jian Wushuang's terrible strength. This strength, in the higher among the masters, it is definitely the best. The pupil is totally unable to compete. It's better to go first. After a short fight, Hitami was completely scared by Jian Wushuang's strength. Naturally, he had no intention of continuing to fight against Jian Wushuang. Although there is something in Jian Wushuang's body that makes him extremely crazy for special treasures, this thing, with his current strength, must not be available to him. He had to leave first and then think of something else. The pupil master wanted to leave, but Jian Wushuang did not intend to let him go. Magic Sand Realm. With a big wave of the sword, the endless black mad sand rolled up frantically, and in the blink of an eye, a huge black sand sea formed, covering the entire sky and the void. The body of that pupil is also covered by this black sand sea. Domina category treasure? Look at this breath, it is the peak domain category treasure. Hitami was surprised. Realm class treasures, among many treasures of the same level, are even extremely precious. And the peak value of the field category arcana, even if compared with the strongest arcana, the value is not too much. Although he is the master, and because of some special reasons, he has accumulated 2 years of strongest treasures, one for attacking, and one of the strongest treasures for the accumulation of long years. No. Unexpectedly, the master of this rule, Jian Wushuang, not only has the strongest attacking soldiers, but also has the highest level of treasure in his hands. The pupil master does not know, although Jian Wushuang is the rule master, this is not false, but at the beginning of the world, he beheaded and killed 3 masters, and those 3 masters came from the 2nd level astral magic cloud star. The net worth is extraordinary. This top-level domain is the treasure that Jian Wushuang obtained from one of the masters. It is a ring named Mosha Ring. Jian Wushuang has recognized the Mosha Ring long ago. When Sha unfolded, A huge magic sand ocean formed instantly, oppressing everything. The pupil was trapped in the sea of magic sand, and was greatly suppressed at the first time. His body speed was greatly weakened, and his overall strength was suppressed a lot. The Lord of the Blood Sword, this seat is about to leave. You must not deceive people too much. Tong Tong felt annoyed when he noticed that the surrounding magic sand ocean was suppressing himself. Too much bullying? Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently. I already said, don't surrender the 3 peak jewels for reparations, you just leave it so simple. End of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.